Shalom, welcome back to the Parsha series. This week we are in Parashat Emor, and Emor means say. That already tells us where the work begins. Not with a big dramatic sign from heaven, not with a spiritual experience that knocks us over, not even with an idea. It begins with speech. What do I say? How do I say it? What energy do my words bring into the room? Do my words make people feel more alive, or do they leave people smaller than before? The Zohar notices that the Parsha opens with a double language of speaking. Hashem tells Moses, "Say to the priests, the children of Aaron, and say to them." The Zohar hears in this a very gentle kind of speech. It says that the service of the priests is quiet, and therefore their speech also carries that quietness. That is so powerful, because we usually think holiness has to be loud. We think if something is spiritual, it has to be intense, dramatic, impressive. But the Zohar gives us a different picture. The holy person does not need to shout. The holy person knows that words have weight. So, before speaking, they ask, is this word clean? Is this word needed? Is this word carrying peace? And that is the first teaching of Emor. Your mouth is not just a mouth. It is a doorway. Every word opens something. The Zohar says the priests are called the children of Aaron, not just because of their family line, but because Aaron spent his life increasing peace in the world. Aaron was not only a priest because he had a title. He was a priest because he knew how to move between people, soften hard places, and bring separated hearts closer again. So when the Torah says, "Speak to the priests, the children of Aaron," the Zohar is telling us what a priest really is. A priest is someone whose presence makes peace possible. Now, most of us are not Kohanim, priests in the technical sense. Most of us are not serving in the temple. But every person has a priestly point inside. There is a part of you that is meant to guard holiness. There is a part of you that knows when the atmosphere has become too heavy, too negative, too cynical, too dead, and that part of you says, "No, I will not add to this. I will bring life here." That connects to the next major theme of the Parsha. The Torah tells the priests not to become impure through contact with the dead, except in certain close family situations. On the simple level, these are laws of ritual purity. But the Zohar reads them with deep spiritual sensitivity. It says that when the soul leaves the body becomes vulnerable to forces of impurity. The priest because he carries an extra level of holiness, has to be especially careful around that space. Now, let us bring that into our own lives without making it strange. Death is real. Grief is real. Loss is real. Judaism does not deny any of that. But the Zohar is asking us not to confuse the reality of death with the rulership of death. There is a difference. To face death is human. To be ruled by deadness is something else. Deadness is when we stop believing that change is possible. Deadness is when our speech becomes sarcastic all the time. Deadness is when we walk into a room and instead of lifting it, we drain it. Deadness is when we say, "That is just who I am," and use that sentence to protect ourselves from growth. The priest inside us cannot live there. The priest inside us has to be careful about what it touches, what it listens to, what it repeats, what it allows to become normal. And this is not about pretending everything is happy. It is about guarding life. Sometimes guarding life means saying, "I need to step away from this conversation." Sometimes it means saying, "I cannot feed this resentment anymore." Sometimes it means saying, "I have carried this old story long enough. It is time to bury it properly, bless it, and stop living inside it." That is Emor. Say the word that brings life back. Then the Parsha moves from the holiness of people to the holiness of time. Emor gives us the calendar of the holy days: Shabbat, Pesach, the Omer, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. On the surface, this looks like a list of holidays. But in the Zohar, days are not empty boxes. Days have spiritual roots. A day can be crowned by the actions we do inside it. The Zohar says that when a person does kindness below, kindness is awakened above. When a person acts with mercy below, mercy is awakened above. That means your day is listening to you, not in a childish way, in a spiritual way. The way you behave today shapes the spiritual quality of today. The calendar is not just something you look at. The calendar is something you participate in. So, if you want a day of blessing, do something blessing-like. If you want a day of mercy, be merciful with someone. If you want a day of light, stop waiting for light to arrive and become a small lamp for somebody else. This is one of the most practical teachings in the Zohar. An action below awakens an action above. We often wait to feel inspired before we act. But the Zohar says, act and inspiration will have somewhere to land. Do one clean thing, one generous thing, one honest thing, one quiet act that nobody needs to applaud. That act opens a channel. And then comes the Omer. This year, in the week of Emor, we are deep inside the counting of the Omer. We are moving through the middle of the journey from Pesach to Shavuot, from liberation to receiving Torah. And the Zohar says something that can change the way we understand freedom. Leaving Egypt was not the end of the work. It was the beginning. The people left slavery, but they were not yet whole. They were not yet clean inside. They had been taken out of Egypt, but Egypt still had to be taken out of them. So the Torah says, "You shall count for yourselves." The Zohar compares this counting to a process of purification, a movement through 7 cycles, until the people are ready to receive Torah on Shavuot. That is a very honest spiritual teaching, because many people think, once I get out of the bad situation, I will be free. But anyone who has lived a little knows it is not that simple. You can leave the place and still carry the fear. You can end the relationship and still carry the pattern. You can change the job and still carry the insecurity. You can escape the outer Egypt and still hear Pharaoh's voice inside your head. So we count, not because Hashem needs the number. We need the number. We count because healing happens one day at a time. We count because the soul needs structure. We count because transformation is not usually one giant leap. It is 49 small acts of becoming. The Zohar connects the 7 weeks of the Omer with the 7 lower Sefirot: Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkuth. In plain language, we are refining love, boundaries, beauty, endurance, humility, connection, and action. So every day, ask a question. How do I love? How do I say no? How do I bring balance? How do I keep going? How do I become humble without becoming small? How do I bond without losing myself? How do I bring all of this down into real life? That is the Omer. It is not just counting days, it is making the days count. And this week is especially beautiful because the count moves through Netzach and into Hod. Netzach is endurance. It is persistence. It is the part of you that refuses to give up on what is true. Hod is humility. It is gratitude. It is the part of you that knows not everything is conquered by pushing harder. So this week, ask us a very real question. Where do I need to keep going? And where do I need to soften? Because some people quit too quickly. The first obstacle comes and they say, maybe it is not meant for me. Emor says, no. If it is holy, keep walking. If it's true, do not abandon it just because it becomes difficult. But other people push too hard. They turn every relationship into a battle. They confuse stubbornness with strength. Emor says no. Holiness is not only endurance. Holiness is also humility. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can say is, I was wrong. Sometimes the breakthrough begins when you stop trying to win. Netzach without Hod becomes ego. Hod without Netzach becomes passivity. Together, they teach us how to be strong and soft at the same time. That is real spiritual maturity. The Zohar also gives us a beautiful picture of holiness itself. It describes holiness as a flow. There is a hidden root above, a deep source of Kodesh, and then that light moves downward, becoming Kadosh, becoming kedushah, until it reaches the world we actually live in. In other words, holiness is not meant to stay abstract. Holiness has to descend. A holy thought has to become a holy word. A holy word has to become a holy action. A holy action has to become a holy atmosphere. A holy atmosphere has to become a home, a relationship, a business, a community, a life. If your spirituality only exists in your head, it has not finished its journey. The light has to land. That is why Emor begins with speech and moves into time. Speech is how inner light starts to become outer reality. Time is where that reality is tested. Can I be holy on Tuesday afternoon? Can I be holy when I am tired? Can I be holy when somebody annoys me? Can I be holy when nobody is watching? That is the question. Not did I have a spiritual moment, but did the spiritual moment make me more careful with my words, more generous with my time, more honest with my choices, more alive in my body, more peaceful with other people? That is kedushah coming down. And maybe this is why the Omer leads to Torah. The Zohar says, Shavuot is a moment of union, a moment when the people become ready to receive the tree of life. But Torah is not just information. Torah is not just something to study, quote, or post. Torah is divine wisdom entering a prepared vessel. So the question of the Omer is, am I becoming a vessel? Not perfect, ready. There is a big difference. Perfect means I have no cracks. Ready means I have made space. Ready means I am willing to listen. Ready means I do not worship my own habits. Ready means I can say, Hashem, I left Egypt, but I still need you to help me become free. And that brings us back to the last part of the Parsha, where the Torah speaks about the misuse of the divine name. The Zohar reads this as a warning about letting a foreign force enter the heart, the Yetzer Hara, the impulse that pulls us away from faith and truth. That also begins with speech. What name do you give things? Do you call cruelty honesty? Do you call ego confidence? Do you call avoidance peace? Do you call numbness wisdom? Do you call despair realism? Be careful. Names are powerful. When we name something falsely, we give it permission to stay. Emor says, speak clearly, speak cleanly, speak life. So here is a simple practice for this week. Before you speak, pause for one breath. Ask, is this true? Is this necessary? Is this bringing peace closer? If the answer is no, maybe the holiest word is the word you do not say. And once a day, during this week of the Omer, do one action that crowns the day. One act of hesed, one apology, one message of encouragement, one moment of restraint, one blessing said with attention, one piece of Torah learned not for display, but because your soul is hungry. Small things count. That is the whole point of counting. We count small things because small things are not small in the upper worlds. Maybe this week the test is not dramatic. Maybe it is the conversation at the table. Maybe it is the comment you almost leave online. Maybe it is the moment you want to answer sharply, but you choose a softer truth. Maybe it is the private decision to stop feeding an old bitterness. That is where Emor lives. Not only in the synagogue, not only in the book. Emor lives in the sentence that leaves your mouth, and in the sentence you decide to hold back because you want peace more than victory in this very moment. A word is not small. A day is not small. A choice is not small. A quiet act of mercy is not small. The Zohar teaches that what we do below awakens what happens above. So do not underestimate your next sentence. Do not underestimate your next kindness. Do not underestimate the spiritual power of refusing to bring more deadness into the world. This week, Parashat Emor says, say something that heals. Say something that builds. Say something that reminds your soul who it is. And even more than that, become the kind of person whose words can be trusted, like Aaron, bring peace, like the priest, guard life, like the Omer, take one step today and another tomorrow, and like holiness itself, let the light travel all the way down until it becomes visible in the way you live. Shalom.